Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's ServiceNow Express video blog post on the topic of the REST API Explorer. Whether you're trying to get data out of the ServiceNow system or push data in, the REST API is a very versatile web service API that allows us to create, read, update, and delete our records and field values therein here in the ServiceNow. So this includes the ability to come into our platform, navigating from the System Admin homepage, in the upper left to our Quick Start documentation, and then to the lower right where we find the REST API Explorer. Now this tool is going to be phenomenal in helping you and your engineers figure out how to integrate your third-party systems using a script and the REST API. So let's start exploring and see what value and benefits this API Explorer allows us to use. So when we click into the REST API Explorer, we have a few examples to us for retrieving records from a table with a GET call, creating a single record with a POST, retrieving a single record with a GET, modifying a record with a PUT, deleting a record with a DELETE, and updating a record with a patch. So let's talk about how beneficial it is to have this in platform documentation and some of the value it provides. So let's start out with a very simple use case. We want to figure out, using the API, how to pull all the data from our incident table. Well, to begin, we're going to navigate to retrieve records from a table GET, and then we're going to go ahead and start filling out this data. So to begin, we're going to be able to pick how we want our request headers to be. So this REST API, we can choose if we want to use our request format, and in the asked for response format from ServiceNow, to be in JSON or XML. So if you're more familiar with XML and you want to send and receive XML, we can go ahead and change that. But let's keep it as JSON for now. The next step is our authorization. So we can have this default sample sent as this person who's currently logged in, or sent as another user if you want to test a secondary using basic auth account. But for now, let's just say send as me. The next step is you pick your path parameters. What type of table we want to pull data from. So here we said we wanted to see all incidents. So I'm going to pick that incident table. Now keep in mind, if you use table creation, those tables will be available as well. The next item is Cori Parameters, and we'll get into those in a second after we run this example. By pressing send, we now have our successful test, response 200 OK, letting us know that this REST API Explorer sent with a success, and it received the following response body. And you'll notice it's quite a number of key value pairs here, comma separated, in a JSON object. So keep in mind, if I picked XML as a response type, this would be an XML. And it'll change in effect how my input is as well. And you may be wondering, how can we see the inputs? How can we utilize the inputs that this simulator, if you will, is sending into ServiceNow? And the answer is through these wonderful code examples found in the lower right. We can view code examples in curl, Python, Ruby, JavaScript, or Perl. So let's see the JavaScript code example for getting all records from the incident table. So here it creates and generates for us a complete code sample where it includes just simply in string the field username and password that we essentially would fill out. We copy paste into an interpreter and we're good to go. Let's however talk about some of these more granular variables and values we can set in Cori Parameters. So in many cases you won't want to pull all the data that's out there using web services. Maybe you just want to pull some for your integration. For example, if this triages up this integration to a different system that handles alerts for high priority items, maybe we're only interested in priority 1 incidents. Additionally, maybe that system is only interested in who is assigned to it, what the short description is, and potentially what the company is that's affected. So we actually have the ability to specify all that. So let's start out with this concept here of our query. So the same way in the list view in ServiceNow we can query the system, we can do that here with our REST API Explorer. So we said we wanted just priority 1 incidents. Well, I can come into incident. I can take a look at my open incidents. This is just bringing up a list view, and I can edit this query using this here breadcrumb. So other than active is true, I want to go ahead and add another condition where priority is 1. And you can do and add on to here as many conditions as you'd like to get down to the data you need. Maybe we're also only wanting to integrate specifically data from our California team. So here we can see we have California team records, or with the assignment priority, and the assignment priority being 1 critical. So I have 2 records here that match this. What we'll notice is we can simply right-click this breadcrumb, say copy query, and I'm simply going to copy that. I head right back to my API Explorer, and I can paste this query in right here into my sysparm query. The value of this is now, when I go ahead and run this, it'll only pull data per this query. I can also explicitly state just what fields I'm interested in. So maybe I want to see the assign to field. Maybe I'm also interested in short description as well as company. It's as simple as doing a CSV of these field names, these column names. And when I press send, we'll now notice it's just those 2 specific records that are returned. My assign to, my short description, and then if applicable, my company. Very quick and easy to get this data using the REST API for any table, and this goes for adding filters in to the data you pull and only pulling specific fields. Again, we can click this code example, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to include that query. It's going to include just the fields we want automatically here in this pre-built code sample. Now, a few other areas where this will help you get on your feet is, as we mentioned, when you need to go ahead and maybe create a record or update a record. And in both cases, the look and field, again, keep in mind, is very similar. Maybe just to change it up, let's switch the output and input to XML. And let's pick a table on here that may be a custom table, something like a facilities table that I built. Same areas before, we can do queries, but we can also include exactly, and keep in mind this is for the response, we can include the fields. So I press add field, and this will actually let me set and pick specific fields that I have on this facilities record. So maybe I want to set the assign to programmatically. Maybe I want to add another field. I also want to set the priority programmatically. And finally, I would also like to set my location programmatically, and so on and so forth. So what this will do is it'll allow for my programming examples me to easily understand what I have where. So this is going to be my var assign to value. This is going to be var priority. And I'm putting var because most likely in a code implementation, you're going to be looping through dictionaries, lists, arrays, if you will, of values to populate this data. But you can see as I'm building this, my body is now an XML being built for me to view. On my facilities table now, when I click, let's say, Python once more, we can see that this is now application/XML rather than application JSON. So both formats both support it for pushing data or pulling it out of ServiceNow using the REST Web Service API. And as you'll see here, I have var assigned to, per my example, var priority, and var location. So when we implement this with a practical approach, these are the type of variables we'll be replacing as we do our looping. Now, some final items to note when we either want to retrieve a specific record or we want to update a record is we're going to need the sysid. So generally, to get the sysid, you're going to start by doing a get call on the table, and that's going to get all records including their sysids, which if you store in some sort of data structure, allows you to use that as the key, if you will, to reference in the future when you do updates. So here, let's go ahead and let's select a new table. So in my case, I want to go ahead and select, let's say, the software table. And from here, I'm going to pick the sys-ID of the record I need. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to find software, let's say this 3D pinball. And I'm going to right-click the header of this record, just for this example, to copy the sys-ID. Again, you would programmatically have gotten this through a get on the entire table. But just like that, I paste that sys-ID in. I now have my sys-ID for the record I am attempting to update. Now, the same way as before, we can specify and view these programmatic examples. And if I want to go ahead and just do a send, it's going to get and show us, that specific, just that specific records, fields, and information.